John? Namaste. How nice to be with you. This is our first satsang where you are, and we are somewhere lost in the deep hills of the Himalayas. And hills is definitely a misnomer because, especially when you come from Florida, these things here are very high mountains. And our connection is as it is. Now, there is the possibility that we have an electricity outage, which happens here every so often. But if that happens, the screen will just go black. And don't despair. Usually those things are quite short. We can never predict when and how long they happen, but they do happen. I think there's probably a 90% chance we can have this broadcast without interruptions. But if it gets interrupted, we will come back just as soon as the electricity comes back on, which is easy to notice here because we'll be sitting in the dark for a while. So this is some of the technical challenges that one encounters here in the middle of the East. And that being that, we can get around it pretty well. So what strikes me here is that I have a sense that there's a tremendous depth here, a depth of realization that has been cultivated, especially in this area, for thousands of years. We are in what is known as Dev Bhumi, the land of the gods, the Kumon, the place where some of the great Mahasiddhas, the great sages, have chosen to live for many, many generations, perhaps thousands of years. And it has left its stamp on the population of this area.
Fixing sound.
I'm sorry?
Fixing sound.
Okay, we're fixing the sound, I hear. I need to stop for a moment. Not good. Okay, while Durga is doing this, I'm just going to tell a little anecdote. It's fabulous that we can do this. No, I shouldn't be talking? Hold on a second. Patience is something you learn really well here. Guess you're on the same train. Shall I talk now? Okay, all right. So, well, the anecdote is that when I was here in the early 70s, the only means of communication we had were aerograms, these flimsy little, very thin paper letters that were like this because they have no weight, so they could transport a lot of them. And they took at least 2 weeks to get from here to wherever they were going, Europe or the United States, if they got there at all. And then it took another 2 weeks for an answer to come back. So those were the means of communication in those days. So I am just very thrilled at what we have right now. But back to this impression that I have. Of course, I've lived here in the past, but right now it is just striking me that we have here such a great depth in the manifestation of this spiritual knowledge. And when I say knowledge, in a sense, that's secondary. The primary thing is the devotion and the love that is present here as a simple groundswell in the population, and especially, of course, with the wonderful people that we are in contact with. We're living here at K.K. Shah's house, one of the closest devotees of Maharaji, my guru, who has such a richness of soul. And he's sharing that with us, and we're meeting some of the other people in the local satsang who are now second, third generation devotees of Maharaji since he passed in 73. And there's much, much more to come. So I had this glimpse of what's happening here is that by our presence here, we are able to dip into this great richness. And your presence in this process is the other important part. Because if we were just here by ourselves, big deal. We could absorb it, it would be great for us. But the fact that you are there, and this ancient culture, this profound devotion that surrounds us is here, that we're now inhaling and in some way able to communicate to you. It makes me think that I'm just a wire. There's electricity here, but the electricity needs someplace to go to. So you're like the light bulb. The electricity is here. I'm simply serving as the wire. No big deal for that. And Durga is a different kind of wire because she has this ability to communicate the steps through music. And as that develops, I just look forward to all of us feeling this divine sentiment that can come through music, that can come through stillness, that can come through our meditations, and feeling it together and growing together as one body, one satsang. So this is a very exciting time, and I don't know where this is going to take us because I'm just a wire. I'm not in charge of this process. In a sense, you are more in charge of the process as you become receivers of this essence. So let's take a moment and take ourselves into the very depth of the heart, which is where all grace comes from. And this is not changing at all, just because we're here. Still, the primary source of grace and of insight and of guidance is that hridayam, that inner guru, that depth of where you receive your most direct guidance. But this inner heart is stimulated by what it receives from the outside. And so we're honored to be here in this area of such an ancient tradition. A few days ago, we went to a temple with KK. It was about a 2-hour, very bumpy and curvy car ride through the so-called hills, steep up and down. And finally, we ended up at this little temple complex that is quite unknown, except to those who are steeped in the tradition of this area. It was a place where one of the great siddhas of recorded history, called Sambari Baba, lived. Sambari Baba had a few places where he would hang out, and people built temples there because they recognized the sacredness of this being, and where a sacred being like this dwells, the place becomes sacred. Maharaji built Kenchi, his primary ashram here in the mountains, in front of one of the caves where Sambari Baba used to stay. So already, we've been here for 2 weeks, but already the felt essence of this place, of this tradition of devotion and prayer and realization is coming into us. And let's open ourselves to that now. In whatever way each one of you is able to receive that, that is the perfect way for you. And we will bring that essence out of the heart, stimulated by the context of our journey here, stimulated by your devotion. And let's see where that takes us. So sit comfortably and bring your mind into stillness. And the way you do that is not by suppressing thoughts, but just letting the mind do what it does. But notice that you couldn't even perceive the thoughts or the sensations if it wasn't for the background of a profound silence that is already and always there. So, as you are aware of your mind, notice any thoughts, any sensations. And notice the background of the stillness. And simply shift your attention into that stillness. Become interested in that stillness. And you will notice that it brings you into the here and now. And then let your awareness sink down into the innermost heart, the hridayam, in the very core of your being. You may picture this spot in your being as a brilliant light in the center of your chest. And you can make this hridayam, this innermost identity of your being, your object of devotion. And what I mean by that is to bring your attention again and again into the heart. Take time during each day to remember God in you, in your heart. And to go deeper and deeper into this place in you, which is naturally and effortlessly radiant, like the sun, like a sun in your heart. It radiates its warmth, its light to every part of your being. And you can receive it there. You can open yourself to receiving this great warmth, this wonderful presence. This healing power. This great nurturance. In every part of your being. Let's begin with your physical body. So sense what's going on in your physical body. Maybe you're very comfortable. Maybe there's a few little tensions or a sense of emptiness, a pain, a discomfort, a stress. And open your physical body to this great warmth and love that radiates naturally from your heart. And notice if there are any obstacles to receiving this warmth, this love, this great letting go. And just notice them. It may be that an old habitual tension is just so ingrained in the way you feel yourself. And still it is a tension. When you notice it as such, it will dissolve on its own. So here again is this great and profound depth of the heart, the source of divine love, the source of great peace, the fountain of all healing. And that great source is recognized by you. That is the wire, that's the connection. And then it's received in your body. And by relaxing, go deeper into receiving this heart essence. and deeper and deeper. And notice the brilliance of this essence of the heart. Notice the power of it. And embrace it. Fill yourself. So it will last you for the rest of your life. And then notice the space of emotions, your emotional body. And may just be the memory of this past week and some of the emotional upsets or tensions that you may have suffered. And let that divine essence from the heart flow into that emotional body. And you will feel it when it arrives, because your whole being will relax into it. And then let's shift attention to the thinking mind, that instrument that starts when we wake up in the morning and doesn't stop until nighttime when we go to sleep. And bring this great relaxation and peace into your thinking mind. And receive it there simply by wanting to do so, by opening your mind to your heart. And there's one more level to the mind that creates obstructions. And it's that sense of being separate, of being locked into a body, of being separate from the great flow of life, from the heart itself, separate from God. So bring this separateness into awareness and allow it to be consumed by that presence in the mind. And these words will mean something different to every person hearing them, and that is perfectly fine. Whatever these words trigger in you is the perfect experience at this moment. For in this space of the heart, there is no separation. That space in the heart is everywhere and in all things. This divine love, this vast space of the presence of God has no location. It comes to you from everywhere, at any time, anywhere. And it is absolutely safe. So let go of even a little more of that habit of holding tight. Relax into the heart. Enjoy this warmth. Enjoy the great gift of your being. This priceless love. This unchanging peace. This unshakable security. Because this essence is in you, regardless of any circumstances you may encounter. It is always present. And as you learn to feed yourself from that source, you can do it in any life circumstance. So now we have visited the mind in its three levels of emotions and thoughts, and that subtle veil of separation. So let's go again once more into the heart directly. Just enjoy that great, wonderful, radiant love and peace in whatever way you experience that essence. Feel it being received. Feel it radiating especially into any place in you where it is most needed, in any part of you that needs help. and appreciate something about you. You are here now, absorbing this essence from the heart, learning to feel those subtle and yet so powerful energies in the heart. You are not part of the vast majority of people who wait until their need is screaming and dire, and then don't know what to do because they have not taken the time to train this inner sensitivity. So appreciate that you have a hunger and an insight that is crucial, that will guide you well at all times, good or bad, until you realize that there are no bad times. There are times of lesser and more challenge, yes, certainly. But it is those times of challenge that give us the strength and show us the greatness of who we are. So now turn to your heart once more with a great sense of appreciation of your own knowledge of that inner source. Setting the intention to come back to this space many times every day, to become single-minded in your devotional pursuit of that inner source and the gifts it will bring you. And then take a deep breath and exhale. And relax. And let's see if there are any questions. You can type them in to your Skype. What is it? Google Plus. You can type them into Google Plus. Any questions? Any comments? This is a two-way street. So I will count on you to make this a communication, not a monologue. But because I'm not getting any questions yet, please feel free to type them in. I'll tell you of a communication I just had with a woman in the United States who told me that her father had just passed away and she was in a deep state of grief. In many ways, we consider that type of a state of grief as sort of a sacred thing that we can't touch. And we hear all the time, oh, this is very difficult, this is going to take some time, this is very hard. So like mantras, we keep repeating our beliefs and the difficulty of that. Let's take a different look at this, a new look at this process of grief that happens when a beloved person dies. And we begin with remembering what it's like when we're with them. Like you're sitting with that person you love in the living room and you're having just a wonderful time. And how do you experience that person? You experience them in your mind. You experience them in your heart. And then that person gets up and goes to the kitchen and you can't see them anymore. And there's no source for alarm because they just went to the kitchen. So how do you experience them? How do you experience your relationship with that being? In your mind and in your heart. And I know the heart is very important because this person is important to you. So now this person dies, they leave their physical body. And you think of them and you feel love for them. And how do you do that? How does that happen? It happens in your mind and in your heart. But we enter something in between here. We enter a set of beliefs and we enter I want to say, very addictive emotional substance called grief. So we enter into the mind thoughts like, I will never see them again. He shouldn't have died. I'm alone. This is terrible. This is very painful. A long list of those kinds of beliefs. Now, imagine for a moment that you're sitting in your living room, just like you sat there with this person some time ago, and now they didn't go to the kitchen, they left their body, and you're sitting there without all these thoughts that this is difficult and terrible, that it shouldn't have happened. So without all these thoughts, what is it like to sit there in the living room? How do you experience that beloved person? In your mind and in your heart. Just like before, when they went to the kitchen. But you see how addictive it is, this drama of, oh my God, I'm now never going to see him again. Meanwhile, you can sit here on the couch and experience the beloved person in your mind and your heart just like before when they went to the kitchen. And really, perhaps even more intimately, just like when they sat there with you. In your mind and in your heart. And perhaps even more intimately. Because now there's no longer the delusion that this being is in another body over there, which is necessarily separate from you. Next to you on the couch, but in a different body. Now, without all the thoughts of how painful and terrible it is, how do you experience the beloved person? Just right in your heart. No longer a separation. No longer a different body to worry about or to deal with. So what can happen to the intimacy? What can happen to the love? What can happen to that connection? It can become astonishingly intimate. Because love knows no boundaries. In love, in true love, not in attachment, which is not love, in true love, we are not separated. We're not separated by time or space. Love happens in the heart right now. And if the mind does not stand in the way of that, with its dramatic thoughts that say that there's something wrong here, but if the mind gets curious, say, what is it like to feel this beloved person right now? And you can create a connection, a bond of connection that is not limited by birth or death, body or no body. And suddenly you realize that the gift of this relationship has just entered another phase. It has gone into a higher octave of loving, of closeness, of connectedness. And then, because you are no longer standing in the way of it, this relationship can become deeper and deeper and deeper every time you visit with each other. And that just depends on the focus of your mind and the openness of your heart. We are given the gift of being with other people in a body, in this separate condition of two bodies. But the true reality of our being is that we are not separate, that we are one and the same. And the heart knows that. Only the mind creates problems, creates separation, creates this abyss that says, oh, I lost something. Oh, I don't want this to be happening. But no matter how much we don't want it to be happening, it is happening. So our choice is now to be miserable and to stay in grief, or to step into the heart, to embrace reality as it is, and to find again this love, this brilliant love that you had the opportunity to share with this being that appeared in a separate body, but in reality can never be separate. And that was obvious through the love that you shared with this being. And so the love affair continues, becomes deeper and deeper, and expands into this realm where there are no differences, where there are no separations. That is the impression that we get through our senses while we're in bodies. This impression of separation. But it can never be true in reality. And we can just take another step to this now. You are in the United States or wherever you're tuning in the world. And perhaps you're watching this after the broadcast, much later. So let go of all the thoughts of separation, of that you're in a different place and we're here and there's this time and space separating us. Let go of that for a moment and come into your heart and see if there's not a sense of connection, a sense of warmth, a sense of communion right now. And it doesn't stop. It can just go deeper and deeper and deeper. This is the power of your heart. It can transport you beyond all apparent separations in time and space. This is how you can now have a relationship, a profoundly loving relationship with anyone you feel connected to. And the first condition of that is that you have that loving relationship with you. And there, of course, is no separation in time and space, because that's right in the core of your being. So we've come full circle. We looked at life, we looked at death. But life and death are not the right words to choose, because life is not the opposite of death. Birth is the opposite of death. Life continues. Life is continuous. In a body, out of a body, this form, that form. And what remains is the love that connects it all. That's like the glue that holds reality together, in the macrocosm as well as in the microcosm of our personal experience with each other, our personal relationships, our personal world. And we have all become specialists in thinking of separation. We have here, we have become specialists in creating unnecessary suffering for ourselves. And perhaps that's getting old for you. So we're here together to become specialists in connectedness, in a connectedness that is irreversible. Yes, we can forget it, of course. But that forgetting is only a problem that we have in this incarnation. The connectedness between souls, once it is created, once it is experienced, once we have breathed life into it, will not be forgotten by the soul. And this is the richness we share with each other. I see some questions popping up here, so let me take a quick look. Bindra asks, how can we live practically in our life with family, work, and world with heart without interference of mind? Well, you can't yet. The mind does interfere. And that is in itself not the problem. The problem is not that we have a mind and that we have to focus on practical things of daily living. Of course we do that. But we can have enough awareness to take some time each day to practice that connectedness with our own hearts, which with practice then translates into the direct experience of the connectedness with all of life. And that does not stand in the way of dealing with the practical realities of life. It's like in the story of the gopis in India. You know, at first they fell in love with Krishna. So let's say Krishna is your own heart. That absolutely ravishing presence of divine love in you. And at first it's like this process of hide and seek. Sometimes Krishna isn't there, you can't find them. In other words, your mind is involved in other stuff in the world and you feel disconnected from the heart. And then this yearning arises, this yearning to go back into the heart. And that goes on for some time. It's a process of purification of the mind and a process of clearing the heart of all these obstructions we've built around it for God knows how long. But because the power of the heart is so immense, this is not going to take all that long. And using the other skills in connection with coming back into the heart again and again will clear out this delusion that we can ever be separate from love. And you will realize that everything you do, all the activities of daily life are done out of that love. Yeah, you may tell yourself, oh, this is a really a drag on a terrible thing and I have to do this and that, but that's just another bit of obstruction. You have the capacity to live from a space of devotion in every moment in your life, devoted to whatever you do. But it takes some training, and that's why we're here doing this together and sharing with each other the richness of our hearts, the sometimes perhaps struggles, but also the joy of our practice. And going back to the story of the gopis, you know, after a while, it was no longer this process of hide and seek. Eventually, they saw Krishna in everything. There's a story of the gopi going to the river to get water. And she's taken the big pots off the top of her head and put them down, filling them up. And then she thinks of Krishna there by the side of the river. And she gets up and puts the water on top of her head as they're carrying the water here in India. And she looks up and there is Krishna in every leaf of the tree and the soil she walks on and the air she's breathing. This is the nature of this love that we are focusing on, that we are enriching ourselves with directly from the heart. It's okay if you don't have any questions. You don't have to apologize. It's kind of tough to have questions when you're deep in the heart, but the reason why I'm asking for questions is, first of all, because it really enriches all of us to have a dialogue. And the other reason is because when you are able to speak in the space of the heart, it makes that experience more real. So one thing that you can do about questions when you come to these satsangs is just notice during the week if something comes up that you really want to speak about, that you really want to engage with here. Write it down, because you may forget when you're sitting here and you're going deep into the heart. The mind kind of takes a break, and that's good. But you have your question there, and then you can see, is it still appropriate? Do I want to ask that? And if you do, please ask it. So I want to thank you for joining us. This is just the first taste here from this new place where we are in India. And it came as a tremendous surprise to me. I didn't think I'd ever live in India again, but what do I know? I'm just here to serve this process that my guru started in me. And it is my great privilege to have you on the other side of that. This is really your amazing gift to me. And I thank you for that. So let's take another moment and close by bringing again the attention to the heart, to see that we can do that just spur of the moment, really quick. It doesn't have to be a big formal meditation. When you're driving to work and you're stopping at a red light, what do you do there? Run the latest news story through your head, or what is not right in your life, or what worries do you have, or what is going to be coming down the pike this day? Or can you just go into the heart for just a moment and enjoy this richness in you, and know that it's always there, always waiting for you. So let's just do that real quick. Go into the heart, breathe in that love. And really the most important thing is to become receptive to it. It's like there's this solar wind from that sun in the heart, the solar wind, and it just keeps flowing and flowing. But your body is like this sail on your ship, and you have to open the sail to receive this essence of the heart, to feel it, to let it come in. And then the boat of your life will move beautifully in the direction toward your enlightenment, toward your peace, toward the great harmony that is waiting for you in all things, in all moments, in all situations of life. Namaste. May this great love be with you. And may you be embraced by it from deep inside of you, more and more in every moment of your life. Namaste.